Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We have all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we have published somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration in university art programs.
That's right. Each week we come at you guys with different listener questions or fantastic illustrator interviews. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
I feel like this is an arguing day.
I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue about it being an arguing day.
You know it's going to be good when you show up feeling that way.
Will's already feisty.
Well, I wanted to talk to you, Will. You launched your Kickstarter 2 days ago, or this is day 3, right?
Yeah, but right now it's probably like about to end.
That's right.
So I mean, like we probably have 3 or 4 or 5 days left, something like
that. So is it weird being a millionaire?
That's funny that you should say that.
Let's dig down into it. How are you feeling about the launch?
Okay. I am a little bit disappointed. A lot disappointed, let me say that.
Okay.
But I'm also like, as an entrepreneur, you have to look at, like, you have to take everything that you do as a learning experience, right? And you have to, like, first and foremost, I am tickled that I get to do projects like this, right? Because I have all the autonomy in the world to either make something successful or mess it up, right? And I loved working on this game, Wicked Christmas. And so if you're looking for, oh, there you go, you got it up there right now.
Got it on the screen. Yeah.
So the thing is, if you go through, what's funny is if you go through Kickstarter and you look at card games, which is ours, is a card game, like 9 out of 10 don't even break 10,000. You know what I mean? There's a lot that are struggling to fund and they're asking for like 2,000. So we're sitting there at 38,000 right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I spent right around $30,000 on Facebook ads. So right away I'm upside down that money, right?
Right.
Now, the thing is,
I heard when you said that, I heard a collective gasp in our audience that you dropped 30 G's on Facebook ads. I mean,
let me just say this too. I know I say this a lot, but different audiences hear different things.
Yeah.
On our live stream, I said, like, we purposely moved into this really small home and paid cash for it when we sold our other home. Like, it's 900 square feet. It's a 1-bedroom house.
It's generous to call it a home. I've been there.
It's a dwelling. It's like you remember the 3 Little Pigs? How one built their house out of straw.
Yeah,
that's kind of this house. But so we did that on purpose so that I could save money and spend money on projects like this. Basically ruin our lives with projects like this.
Yeah. And your wife's just on board.
She's totally on board. But here's the thing. So the amount of the metrics that we used to determine how many sales we would get, so one thing happened was that when on launch day, you guys saw that you couldn't even get on Kickstarter. Like, if any of you guys that are listening tried, for some reason, like, they just said, hey, Will Terry's going to launch his Kickstarter. Let's take the site down right when he presses the button. So you couldn't get in. Like, it was, the pages were loading like 5 minutes a page or something like that, right?
Yep.
And so that really hurt us. But what's hurting us, that's really probably more of an excuse. What's really hurting us is that we can't deliver for this Christmas. And some of you will say, well, that was stupid. Like, a lot of our backers are like, well, why in the hell did you launch now, right before Christmas, and you can't deliver for Christmas? Like, you got us all excited. We want it. We have so many people that wanted this game that have backed out.
I'm not getting this for Christmas?
Right. Some of them are angry. Here's the different customers we have, right?
Yeah.
Totally pissed off. Give me my $1 reservation back, which we do. They don't want to hear it. They're just really, they can't go through the grief process at all, right? And then you have people that are really disappointed, and they're like, yeah, just contact me when you get the physical games and I'll buy it. But I don't know what Kickstarter is, and I don't want to back it. Or just contact me next year right before Christmas, I'll buy it. So we have a whole list of people that want the game when it's done. Then we have people that are like, oh, I'm really bummed, but I believe in what you're doing, so I'm still in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have people that are like, I don't care when I get it, I just want it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like that bad news didn't even affect them at all.
Yeah.
But the metrics that we used to determine like whether our ad spend was working or not was based on a normal Kickstarter that isn't seasonal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if it had been just a normal game and people found out they were going to get it like 3 or 4 months later, they'd be fine. But because they want to give it as Christmas gifts,
yeah,
that's the challenge we were up against. Now we knew about that challenge going in, and we knew we could wait and launch it in the spring, so we'd have time. I mean, like that's the obvious thing for the armchair quarterback to go, well, what an idiot Will is. Why doesn't he just launch, in March or April or something? Then he can have time to get the games printed, and then he can market it and sell them at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
The marketing company we used really thought we would be talking to a tiny fraction of an audience that would be interested in Christmas right after Christmas. And they thought, if you get people hyped up before Christmas, you'll probably make more sales, even though there's a lot of people that back out. But they didn't have a way to calculate how many people would back out. And as it turns out, it looks like it's way more than they thought it would be, way more than we thought it would be. So I'm thinking our Kickstarter might end up around 60 or 70,000, which is enough for me to get my money back.
Right.
Enough for us to get plenty of free product after the fact that we can sell next year. And we'll probably lean really heavy into getting a lot because we have a lot of stores that are interested. And so where we've really put this is like starting a normal business where it takes you an average business 3 years to become profitable. Yep, we'll probably be profitable next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried. Again, living well below our means, this is money that I don't need to pay rent. I don't have a mortgage payment. It's not money that I needed. It was sitting off to the side, and now it'll just sit in Kickstarter product until next year.
Yeah.
Also working on another game right now to launch before
When's
Halloween.
that one go?
So the idea there is that this is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I think what I'm going to do is print that on my own dime. Mm-hmm. So go even deeper in the hole.
Yeah.
Ahead of time, launch a Kickstarter in September for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And then, but be able to advertise on the Kickstarter, like we're shipping as soon as the Kickstarter's over to you.
Right.
Like you'll have these before Halloween.
Right. The only problem there is, I guess,
I don't know how many to print.
You don't know how many to print, but you can kind of, based on this Kickstarter, you could probably get a good feel.
And I think what we'll do, we'll lean heavily into, hey, we've got 4,000 games, 5,000. When they're gone, they're gone. They're going to be shipped. Like as soon as it's on September 30th. Yep, we're shipping games to you. Maybe we'll launch it. Yeah. Maybe we'll launch it in mid-August. And say in mid-September, we're shipping this out to you for October. Mm-hmm. For Halloween. So
are you going to be the holiday card game guy? Is that the plan?
At least for now, but we're going to run out of holidays really quick. We did think about like some kind of a Thanksgiving murder party or something,
Yeah.
Like that you play at dinner.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like Mafia.
Yeah, something like that.
Or Secret Hitler, but it's
there's all kinds of games like that.
And that's not a bad idea because everybody's together and everybody.
That's what we were thinking. That looking at the comments, people are like, "Oh, when we get together for this, we'll play Wicked Christmas,"
Yeah.
And so that's like, the Facebook. If you spend $30,000 on Facebook, you see comments like you have never seen before, and they're honest because they don't know there's an actual real person behind it. It's just on our Wicked Christmas account, so they think they're talking to a company, and they just say whatever they want, and you really get really good feedback from it. So anyway, I am considering this a success, even though we're probably not going to make a whole lot of money. Maybe we'll make a little bit of money this time, but it's really, we're kind of starting something for the future.
So right
there's
now,
a couple
go
of
ahead,
things
Lee.
that you said that's important. I think that too many people don't pay attention to the big thread that kind of makes an entrepreneur, as we all are, as us three are now. And that is that you already have other games in mind. This is not the only thing. And what we talk about in Self-Publishing Pro is each launch is, it is what it is, but it's really building towards the next thing and towards the next thing and towards the next thing.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody that just has one idea and you think that one, like you wrote a children's book and you think it's going to be, the best selling thing you've ever seen in your life, it's not going to be, and you're going to be stuck on that one. I mean, that's the big thing is the people that are successful do this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about your project is that it's a Christmas deal, and watching David Hone did this book called God Gave Us Christmas. And, my book royalties, I always hope, just fingers crossed that some book hits big. I mean, not Harry Potter big, because that's going to be like the lottery, but just a good one, you know what I mean? That's like recognized. And I haven't had it. And so I haven't had huge royalty sales, but David Hone did that book and it comes back every Christmas. And I don't know how much, I'd be curious to ask him what that total is if he's kept track of it, but it's a lot over a long period of time. And so this Kickstarter, maybe it didn't go as huge as you wanted it to, but now, I mean, the whole goal behind Kickstarter is build the product.
Right.
And then the second phase of that is, oh, cool, look, I made some money on top of that. That's always a bonus. But you got the product now, and you went through the process of building a game, and now you're going to be like, oh, here's what I can do on the next game. And so it's just important to start thinking that way, even about making individual images. To our listeners, is don't focus too hard on one thing. It's the sequential, gradual building of images.
Yeah.
I just looked up God Gave Us Christmas on Amazon. 3,200 ratings, which is awesome for a children's book. It came out in 2006, and right now its bestsellers rank is 13,000, which, that's not high, but it's, if you go look at any other,
that's high.
Oh, my book right now is probably sitting at number 4 million. So
if you look at like any other book that came out in 2006, it's probably the highest one.
Yeah, it ain't too shabby.
Ain't too shabby. And it kicked off a God Gave Us series.
Yeah, though the rest of them did okay, kind of like Will's skeleton book that he talks about. The first one was really the magic, and then it's tough to recapture that in sequentials. I mean, I think the other ones did okay, but I don't think they did nearly the numbers that one did, the Christmas one. And get this, I've got a Christmas book that I did a few years back that I love the book. It's about a girl corresponding with Santa over a number of years, and it has papercraft in it, so you can actually pull the letters out and read them, which a lot of parents complain because then their kid loses the letter and you can't do anything with it. But eventually, if there's any kids listening, or if your kids are in the car with you or whatever, turn this off right now and play this when you're by yourself later. So that's a disclaimer. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to
hold the presses.
Hold the presses. So the book talks about learning about Santa Claus. I'll leave it at that. And the truth behind it. And so because of that subject matter, I couldn't promote it.
Couldn't promote it.
You can't promote a book that talks about the truth about Christmas to kids.
That's true.
So I don't get that. I don't get the spoils of this book that I think is so lovely. I'm very proud of the work that came out of that.
Boy, I could tell you some stories. Artist told me over the weekend, but I can't. Along similar lines with a Christmas theme thing.
Yeah, but the big thing is just making stuff, and that's what I want to stress out of this whole thing. So congrats to Will, Terry for doing the thing.
Now this is if you're on YouTube, you can see where I'm holding up my calculator. $1.76. That's what we paid per name. So we have 17,000 email addresses now of people that wanted an indie game. Now they wanted a Christmas game. So how many of those people will want a Halloween game? I don't know, but we can market to them for free now.
Hey, I'll buy that list from you for 50 cents a person.
Hey, that might be worth it.
Now you guys know how you get spam mail.
but
just witnessed behind the scenes.
But here's the thing, like I just want listeners to know, like we talk a lot about money, and it might turn some people off. But here's the thing: what do I really want out of life? I want to be able to make art, and I want to make people happy with the art that I make. That's it. That's what I want. I want to make a living doing that. I don't want a real job, and I've successfully avoided it for 35 years. And I'm probably to the point now where I'm unhireable, right? At 58 with gray hair and a lot of attitude, a lot of old man attitude.
I wouldn't hire you.
I wouldn't hire you either.
We barely even told you when this podcast was.
That's right. I had well, hey guys,
like, do we want Will coming?
We podcasting again? But no, like that's the thing. That's the goal, is to be able to do what you want to do and have fun making the kind of art that you want. And that's what I'm doing. And I can't wait for next year.
I want to point out something too. I went to a wedding over the weekend up in Utah and sat next to this couple. And they looked like they I don't think they knew anybody at the wedding other than the person getting married. And it turns out that they met through work. They both work at a business co-op space type of thing, kind of like what Lee has. And so I was sitting down and I was like, hey, so what do you do? What do you do for work? And he said, oh, I run me and my wife here, she started it. We run a entrepreneurial training business that teaches prison inmates how to use their already nascent inherent entrepreneurial skills that actually got them into prison, but how to use that knowledge legally when they get out of prison, how to start a business, what businesses to start. Because one of their big problems is they want to go clean, they want to get a job, but nobody will hire them.
Right.
And so their other option is to go back to what they were doing before or start their own business. And I asked him, I'm like, well, oh, that's cool. How did you even get into this? He's like, oh, I was in prison for 18 years.
Wow.
And
that'll do it.
And yeah. And he's he had all these skills. He was still running stuff while he was in prison. And when he got out, he's, completely reformed, and he wanted to get right into running this thing with his wife. They had met through the program and eventually got married. But I just think it's cool because he was like, the main thing here is you have control over what you do. Like you have freedom and you have control, and also you don't have anybody calling the shots for you. Like you just show up, and whatever you make and whatever income that comes in is completely up to your abilities and how much hustle and grind that you can put into it, but also how smart you can be about it. So just going back to what you said, like some people don't have options, but that always is an option right there.
What's funny is I've used that in some of my lectures when I was teaching at university about like I've seen the tattoos that inmates make. Some of them are obviously terrible, but some, like, there are some real artists, some really amazing artists in prison. The weapons they make take a lot of creativity. The way that they hide them takes an extreme amount of intelligence and creativity. And I've often thought, I grew up in an idyllic upbringing, with two parents who were very loving and caring, and I mean, we had regular family troubles, but nothing. I mean, like, I had it good, and I've always wondered, like, what would have happened to me if I had a really bad upbringing with my creativity, ended up in prison. I'd probably be one of those guys doing prison tats,
Yeah,
because the creativity's got to come out somehow,
right?
it's
Yeah.
going to come out, whether it's put to good use or not, you know.
Now I want to see the alternate universe with Dark Will.
Well, some people on Wicked Christmas was like, gee, Will, this is really dark. And
it's about the tamest dark that Will can go.
Yeah.
I want to clarify something. We were talking about God Gave Us Christmas. Turns out God Gave Us Christmas did not start the book series. Okay, you guys are going to get your knocks blown off, your socks blown off, knocked off, whatever.
Or not.
Your knocks socked off. Anyways, it started in year 2000, with a book called God Gave Us You, illustrated by Laura J. Bryant. Oh, no. Lisa Tonbergen and Laura J. Bryant is the illustrator. That book has 21,000 ratings on Amazon. And currently, for a book that came out 24 years ago, sits at bestsellers rank number 863. Okay. And it says here, this is an ECPA bestseller. I don't know what ECPA stands for, but it says part of the best-selling God Gave Us series with more than 5 million books sold. So this is a hot series. And if you can, that explains why there's 11 books in the series. They're like, hey, people are buying these, so just keep cranking them out. Going back to this idea at the beginning where you don't have one book, you don't have one project, you should have in your mind, this is one of many. And if one of these hits, if it works, keep doing it.
Well, and if it can be linked, like, you know, if we're successful selling games next year as well, then we'll have another game to satisfy that audience. So
yeah.
There's probably a lot of crossover of people who want to play a Christmas game that don't want to play a Halloween game. If you do, you know, a children's book about, I don't know, about, you know, a go to sleep or go to bedtime book, and then you do one about something completely different, it's hard to market to the same audience, you know.
All right, Lee, you've got a workshop coming up. Did you want to talk about how that prep is going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's in 2 days. It's probably already happened by the time you guys are listening to this, but the workshop's in 2 days. I tell you this, if you ever want to learn something to the maximum, try to teach it. And then if you really want to learn it, try to teach it for 14 hours straight over 2 days.
Right.
It is a lot. And I've had to go through a lot of different versions of sort of what I'm going to be teaching, because I don't want to, I need to be able to finish. Like if I'm going to do a painting, say the painting takes me 4 hours. Well, that's a full day because they're going to watch me paint and then they're going to paint.
Right.
So I had to abbreviate. So I have a painting that I have to do. And basically like on the first day, I'm doing a bunch of techniques in the morning. And then the afternoon is going to be a full demo, full finished painting. But I need to finish it in 1.5 hours to give them enough time.
Yeah.
Basically 2.5 hours to work. And so it's tough to wrangle that kind of stuff in. But the biggest thing I can say for anybody trying to learn a medium is, here's a quote for you guys. Lee's professional tips. There's a quote that I heard a long time ago and I always pay attention to it. That is, do the common things uncommonly well. And so that's the big thing that I keep coming back to as I'm going through this workshop, is not trying to be this virtuoso painter and impress people with the painting, but show some basic techniques that can be applied over and over to very skillful results if you just stick with those, 5 basic things. And that was the big thing that I saw at that Chicago workshop that I went, is that people didn't understand these 5 essential working or methods. And so then when they try to paint some full thing, they have no control or ability on how to do that. And so I was able to fine tune my process quite a bit from having to abbreviate it into this workshop. So it's pretty cool. I'm happy about it.
Cool.
That's awesome. I guess we'll follow up next time we meet. I want to hear how this workshop went. Is this something like you're feeling now, is this something you want to keep doing, live workshops, or is it like
I just love it. I'm going to do some videos, of course, too. And that's cool because, people can watch them from everywhere. But there is something about being in the room with somebody, watching every single thing that you're concerned with. Like, oh, how are they holding the brush? Do I hold it in the same way? Absolutely. I want to keep doing it because interacting with people is what is missing from my professional illustration life. And honestly, that's going to be the next stage of my career, I think, is I'm going to go back to more gallery stuff. I'm going to go back to more live teaching, and just because I enjoy it. I like being in the room with people and making art. So
yeah. So this isn't cutting it, just seeing me and Will on a tiny
sick
screen.
Of you guys. I just took a big illustration job. Will and Jake have worked with this or are working with the same client. And while I enjoy it, I'm sick of the computer. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm just not loving being inside for 8 hours a day, looking at a screen. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Okay. That's cool. All right.
I would say you're spoiled.
No.
Um,
You mean I've worked for 20 years to get to the point where
Well,
I can
you've
choose
worked
things?
on enough of your own projects, and you've also, let's face it, you've gotten to a point where you're financially sound enough to where, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like your like gratitude ebbs and flows with like how hungry you are, right? Like if you're just trying to pay rent, any illustration job that comes in that's freelance is like gold.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you're not struggling at all financially and you have plenty of money set off to the side, they're just not as valuable and you're not as grateful for them.
I think here's our first argument. Will's too focused on the money. Let me give you another analogy that kind of frames this in a better way.
Lee, you gotta be honest with yourself.
Will is like, the first, if you're like, oh, I'm not happy with that. Will's like, you're not making enough money. How much money you make?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know why I gave him Shaq's voice. No, I'm not making enough money. I think you need to make some more money.
That's hilarious.
But if you ever hear of or have heard the graduation speech that Neil Gaiman gave, that's more where I am versus, oh, I don't need the money, because I actually do need the money because of some life changes. I mean, it's opportunities, but I'm in a very sort of expensive moment right now, and I'm spending a lot, kind of like you did for the game.
Expensive moment. I like that.
It's an expensive moment. Sometimes there's times where the money's coming in, and other times it's going out. And right now, it's just going. It feels like it's all going out. But Neil Gaiman's graduation speech talks about pointing yourself always towards the goal, which he, I think in the graduation speech, he talks about it being a mountain. So you just orient yourself towards the mountain, and that's the direction you're supposed to go. And so that's going to dictate your choices, but the choices aren't always the same. For example, if your goal is to be some kind of working artist, and you're working as an Uber driver, and somebody gives you the offer to do some sidewalk chalk art, well, is that turning you towards the mountain or away from the mountain compared to where you are right now? It's moving towards. That's art more than Uber is. So now you've moved one step closer. Well, now you've got the sidewalk art gig, and somebody asks you if you want to work illustrating menus for a restaurant. Is that your dream job? Of course not. But it's more towards professional illustration than sidewalk art. So you take that step. And each step, you kind of look at it like that. Well, I've taken a lot of those steps. And now I'm at the point now where is doing professional illustration job moving me towards my goal, my mountain, or is doing fine art gallery shows more towards my mountain? And that's my choice now that I've made 100 other of those choices to get to this choice.
Well, Lee, I'm going to be making this
Boom.
Halloween game real soon, and I need some characters designed for it. So I would love you to do those for me for $25 each.
That would turn me away from the mountain. Then
full color rendered.
I don't work for $25 doing a character.
No, we got mini Shaq.
So just so you guys know, Lee's full of
Big Shaq and Little Shaq.
Lee's full of that stuff that you know about because you love to do characters. You love doing characters.
I'm not doing characters anymore. For anyone else. I do like doing character. Actually, I like doing environments more. I don't know what that is about. In my sketchbook, most illustrators, you look in their sketchbook, it's mostly characters, almost all faces
Yeah.
Not even bodies. I never do that. I'll
All right,
sketch
Lee,
like a cafe or something before.
I didn't.
People in it.
I've never told you guys this, but I have a rich uncle, and so I'm independently wealthy, like to the tune of multi millions of dollars. And I'll pay you $5,000 for each of those characters.
Not doing it.
Yeah, you would.
Not doing it.
Here's the thing: what rich uncle
Say,
would
how
give
fast
their
do you
money
need
to
it?
you, Will? That's my question.
What's that?
What rich uncle would give their money to you?
True.
I guess no. I was gonna say, going back to Lee, like on environments. I hear you. I think that absolutely is one of your strengths. Looking at that piece that you did for this recent job that you're doing, like the color on that, the layout, so good, so solid.
Oh, thanks.
I love that. But I think just to counterpoint what you're saying, there's also something to be said about keeping that Uber job or keeping the solid day job that you have, and every spare moment that you have to devote to your craft is spent not on like doing chalk art and doing this odd, different odd jobs, but really dialing in, focusing on one thing. So let's say for 20 years, all you did was watercolor in your free time. Like, you would get pretty good at watercoloring.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the whole point. There's an artist named Alex Love, I think. I can't remember his last name. Alex Howell. And he is a watercolorist, and he says you should absolutely not ever take an art job.
Right.
If you want to be a good artist, do not take an art job.
Mm-hmm.
Preserve that moment of art for yourself. And I there's something to be said for that too.
Yeah. I had a wise friend once tell me, he said, because I say? Well,
what did I tell you?
Friend.
What did I tell you?
It wasn't you guys.
I was trying to tell you how you need to make some money.
No, we were talking about comics and how every time I would try to make money off of a comic, the comic would, and I've said this before on the podcast, but who's listened to every episode? Every time I try to make money off a comic, I would not make a ton of money off that comic, and I would not make a great comic. But when I really sat down to make a good comic, not worrying about money, the comic was great. And so he's like, Jake, you got to do whatever you got to do to make money, but just leave comics for yourself. And what he was saying was, when you leave comics for yourself, you're free and you actually make better work. And regardless if that leads to a financial gain or not through the comics, at least I'm making really good comics and putting good stuff out and getting better in the world. And I think that applies to just take out comics and insert watercolor, insert designing board games, or insert character design or concept art or anything like that. I think especially this day and age, and I'm talking like the last, 4 or 5 years, where the economy is just sort of like tanking and gas is getting higher, and food is getting more expensive, and rent is crazy, and no one can afford a house, and the longshoremen are striking, so you can't get eggs anymore, and just garbage
Stupid
like that.
Longshoremen.
The longshoremen and eggs?
Have you heard about that?
I thought longshoremen were fishermen.
Well, no, the longshoremen are basically handle the ports. So anything that's getting shipped from one side of the country to another, or from one other country to our country, they're essentially, they're not unloading the ships.
Right.
They're not unloading the docks or anything. So
that shows you how much I know. I thought longshoremen were fishermen.
No. Anyway, regardless, we're in tough economic times.
We are. Costco didn't have any water yesterday. They didn't have any bottled water.
Or caviar.
Really? Can you get caviar at Costco?
Lee can.
40-gallon.
It's called Costco VR.
Costco VR. No, it's Kirkland's signature caviar. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, you got to take care of yourself, and if you got a good job that maybe isn't creative, keep it. and spend your creative capital on making your art and getting better at your art. And it's just going to stress you out and freak you out, because if you're trying to make money off your art, unless you're really good, but even the really good people are getting laid off from, this is sounding very gloomy right now, but like Pixar laid off, I don't know how many, they laid off a ton of artists after Inside Out 2 came out. Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing animated film ever ever happened. Yeah, did you not hear that?
No. We just watched it last week, by the way. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I loved it. I cried, man. The girl in that movie looks just like my daughter.
Oh,
so I'm just sitting there like,
well, I have a third. Now my son's birthday today, 14 years old. They nailed the teenager angst.
Oh man, got it. They got it good.
Okay, here's a marketing question to pivot a little bit. Marketing question about that movie. I understood the first movie. She's young, and typically the age range for animated movies is, what would you say? Probably 6 to 11.
Yeah,
is probably the sweet spot. But then this one, and there's been a couple recently, definitely leaning towards that 13, 14. And so is somebody who's a 6-year-old kid sitting there watching somebody go through puberty, does that resonate in any way?
I'll tell you this. I had a big aha moment, and we were watching, I forget what movie, we were watching Incredibles 2, I think, or something like that. And this was recently, like a few weeks ago. And I was watching it with my daughter, and the first time she saw it, she's 14 now. The first time she saw it was, I think when she was like 7 or 8, right? And so we're sitting there watching, and she's like, oh, I get this movie now. Oh, I understand this. And I'm realized, and this has happened multiple times with different movies where she's watched it now that she's a teenager, she's getting everything. And I'm realizing that when they're at that age, it's just pretty colors and it's movement and it's like a gag and laughter. They're not understanding it any deeper than that. So these movies can be essentially, they're making a movie that the adult can appreciate, the teenager can appreciate, and the kid can appreciate, because there's stuff happening on all different levels. That's why Pixar is so successful, right? I want to see that Wild Robot movie. I hear that's really good.
We gotta have Peter Brown back on. He might be too big for us now. He may have outgrown us.
Too big.
I think he outgrew us like just before we had him on last time.
He was like pissed that he had to be on our show.
Yeah, he's like, I can't believe it's come to this. I'm getting interviewed by these yahoos. No, but just to tie everything up in a bow from what I was saying before, I think time focused on craft and getting better is not time wasted.
Right.
And time spent earning a living, regardless of how you do it, is time not wasted. So
there is an irony to that.
There you go.
Because you're working to make money. But if your goal is to make money, then you're probably not going to make great art. Right. So that's the quandary that I've been faced with on making these games and doing them right. And we were going to try to launch earlier, and we didn't. The next one, like, that's the thing that I'm going to be working through, is making sure that everything is right with the gameplay and with the art, and not making any sacrifices, thinking of the payday that's coming. It's constantly a balance. And with that, there's that finished not perfect thing either. Like you can overdo that to where you become paralyzed and you never release your product, right?
Right.
So there's a balance there to be struck for sure.
Did you guys read the comments on the episode that dropped this week?
Let me go look right now. I'm scared.
It was the one where I posed the question, who's going to be more successful in the marketplace? A so-so artist, but amazing YouTuber, or an amazing artist and a so-so YouTuber? And we got lots of feedback in the comments from that. And pretty much everybody was like, sorry guys, but it's the YouTuber that's going to be way more successful, because at the end of the day, it's the marketing. You might have a great product, but if nobody knows about it, then how's it gonna sell?
I can think of examples where it's true both ways, though. So, like I've seen people that are really good, have a really good reach, but they don't have a good product to sell beyond the product of YouTube. And then I've seen YouTubers that have a lot of reach and have a good product and sell it, or decent product and sell it. I've seen people that,
I mean, it really does come down to, you got to have a good audience to product fit. Right.
But there are people who don't have any social media presence at all, who have come out of nowhere and won the Caldecott, and now they're instantly a huge name in children's books.
Right. But do you know
it does happen?
That's because the marketer had good, the publisher had good marketing.
Well, that's like lightning striking also with.
We're having the same conversation we did last time in order to get these comments. So let's move on to the question.
Well, hold on, Lee.
Lee. I think we should all charge people.
I've also known one last thing. I've seen people that have kind of just been put on the right project as illustrators and have done really well in their career because they've sold a ton of books, and the artwork isn't that amazing. So I've seen it go both ways. I don't think you can make a blanket statement one way or another. That's all. I had to get that last word in there.
Okay, but I think you can probably look at the data and make a statement that's pretty accurate. So, all right, first question. You guys ready for this? I need to find where it's at on my.
It's from Dylan.
Tabs here. I got it. This is from Dylan. Is 17 too young for all of this? Hey guys, my name's Dylan. I'm a passionate comic book fan, eager to break into the industry producing my own characters and storylines. That being said, I'm only 17 years old and still working to wrap up my final year of high school. I would also like to work towards a degree at technical college in the future moving forward. I'm currently using Instagram to promote my work and try to gain enough followers to start a Kickstarter. However, I feel as though I lack the know-how to grow a community through social media. What advice would you guys give to a 17-year-old wanting to start their own comic book brand and build a much larger fan base? And I think for this question, we can just remove comic book and insert any sort of thing that you're trying to, a YA writer, a children's book illustrator, an interpretive dancer, whatever. What do you guys think? Is 17 too young?
I don't think it's too young to start, but I think it's important to know that as you're developing your art over a lifetime. So you're just, if art is the thing that you love doing, and whenever you have free time, you love to draw and you love to paint or whatever it is that you do, then you just come to terms with the fact that you're an artist. That is your curse in life, right? And you need to feed that hunger and that itch. And it's not about being successful this year or next year or the year after that. It's being successful over your lifetime. And so it takes as long as it's going to take. And some people it takes just shorter amount of time. And some people it takes a moderate amount of time. And some people it takes a long time before they really find themselves. But in general, like the people that offer something on their social media that other people want in their life on a regular basis are going to follow you. And as long as you're giving them that thing that satisfies the reason they followed you in the first place over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to be able to continue to build that audience.
Yeah. My son drew comics all through high school, and he did 4-panel funny comics, which were perfect for Instagram, because that's sort of a thing on Instagram is the 4-panel comic, and it makes it easy. You could swipe through the comics, or you can look at them, read them really easy. And so he built quite a significant following. I think he had 20 or 30,000 followers in high school. all reading his comics. And after he graduated high school, we did like a father-son project where we scanned all the comics, we made a book, we put together a video for Kickstarter, we cobbled together the Kickstarter and everything, launched it, and I was just sort of guiding his hand every step of the way. And he put out a book called Robo Tater Tot, which was a collection of all his high school comics. It funded. We got it printed in China. We got the book shipped over. We distributed it, and he's been selling those books, not a ton, but selling them off and on ever since then. He graduated in 2019, I believe. And one sold just yesterday. I just saw in the shop that one sold again. And so like he is still trying to figure it out. He's still trying to do his own comics, still trying to like get better at the craft. And I don't think it's not too young to start. Like that's all learning. You're just going to learn regardless, just what Will said, regardless if you succeed or not, you're going to learn. I want to point out too that you have so much time as well. Like 17 isn't too young, but also, 25, if you ever get to 25 or 28, you're not too old either to not have started. I was looking at Mike Mignola's work and some of his earlier work, and Hellboy came out in 93. And I was looking at artwork that he made for comics in like 86, 87, 88, which was, 6-7 years prior to Hellboy. And his style, it was interesting to see like his style wasn't even quite developed at that point. It looked Mike Mignola, but it wasn't like Mike Mignola Hellboy level. And to see him every year, and then I got really curious, like every year style gets a little bit more dialed in. Next year, 1989, style gets really developed on this project. 1990, oh boy, now we're really starting to see the Mike Mignola that we know and love. And by the time Hellboy came out, it was so dialed in and so refined that when he launched Hellboy, this was a guy who had really ton of experience already in the trenches, putting out comics, building a name for himself, and now finally be able to make his creator-owned thing. He was 33 in 1993 when Hellboy came out. So essentially that, that like some people feel like 33, you should be like, you should be done and gone from whatever you're doing. Like that's not the time that you start and launch your own thing. But I think he needed those years of like, he started doing comics in his early 20s. He needed 10 years. He needed 13 years to like figure out the craft.
So I didn't even start until I was 30. So
what's that?
I didn't even start until I was 30. So, you have time.
He's a great example. I look at Miyazaki too. His first feature film was The Castle of Cagliostro. It was like a Lupin the Third thing. He made that movie in his 40s, right? So his full like movie career didn't kick off until he was in his 40s. Up until then, for the 20 years prior to that, he was storyboarding and he was working on shows, and he was sort of like this behind the scenes guy doing stuff, but he was drawing comics. He was like, he had a vision and he was developing and pitching stuff. And then after that movie came out, he's like, okay, now I'm going to do my own creator-owned thing. And that was Nausicaa. And Nausicaa was first a comic and then a movie. And then he finished the comic after the movie came out. And all that happened like when he was 43, 44, 45, something like that. So there's plenty of time.
One thing that I'd like to add here that we haven't really talked about is the best part about being 17, 18, 19 is the level of interest and passion and energy that you have is unique to that time frame. I mean, even my son, like I said, he just turned 14, he's teaching himself Blender, and I have to pull him off the computer from learning Blender on his own.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And so there's that kind of, that's tough to keep in your late 30s and your 40s and you sure don't have it in your 50s. I have to drag myself to the drawing table now. But I can't get him away from it. And that enthusiasm, you know, I like Will's answer, and I think it's true that you got a lifetime, so don't worry about it. But I always hated that answer when I was young too. I feel like your passion can drive those years like nothing else can. And I don't know if you guys remember, do you guys remember the moment where you sort of started to get it with art? Like, did you have that aha moment, or was it truly a gradual thing?
I think you have those pinnacle pieces and those you're learning. It's not just all or nothing, but you know, you have stair steps on the way up. But yeah, I do remember like, and part of it, like, I think what you're saying too is like, you have this hunger and this thirst for being able to do something better than you did before when you're younger.
Right.
Because you don't know if it's going to turn out or not. That's and right. When it does, it's so magical that you're just so jazzed. And when it doesn't, you feel like crying and tearing it up. But then you know, the artist in you brings you back around to keep trying. The problem when you get to where, unfortunately, where I think all three of us are, is, you know, when you sit down, you have the knowledge and the skills to make something good every time. Like you know, if you follow your process, you follow the steps, you're gonna. And there's something sad about that, in that the uncertainty isn't there, and the uncertainty is kind of what makes it exciting. But the exciting thing is also, I guess for us, at least for me now, what I look forward to is, I know that when I start to plan out a project, people are going to like it. There's going to be a certain group that really likes it. And that's exciting. That's where I get my...
Even your worst piece is going to be better than most people.
Yeah, and Wicked Christmas, we had like hundreds and maybe even thousands of comments saying, I want to buy this just because of the artwork, you know. And that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, they don't know how the game plays yet, but they're like, you had me at the artwork.
Lee brought up a good point, though, about when you're young, you have that energy and that passion. And I want to point out, with Miyazaki, many of his best ideas were things that he developed in his 20s. Like, they're based on sketches and ideas that he had, you know, that he was coming up with in his 20s, that he finally had the skill and the resources to actually turn into a movie in his 40s, 50s, 60s, right? And I saw this interview with Bob Dylan, and it was talking about how he wrote these amazing songs in his 20s, right? And he was just lamenting and maybe came to terms with the fact that he's like, I couldn't write anything like that today. Like, those could only be written by a young, almost naive guy or a person who is just awakening to their, you know, to the world around them. I couldn't write that today. And so you want to harness that youth, you want to harness that energy, be okay that you haven't learned the craft, but write down your ideas, write down your sketches, or keep your sketchbooks, keep your ideas, start making things, get good at your craft. And I think the theme of this episode really is a focus on craft, not so much as to make a living off of it or make money off of it, but just for the sake of getting so good at it, that really people can't ignore the work that you're making. And I think that is a more reliable path to success than trying to like leverage a social media campaign and a following right now so that you can sell, you know, launch a Kickstarter and have that be like, I think you really need to focus on craft at this stage more than anything
I worry that that's a big part of it now. Like, we didn't have that distraction, so you were able to sort of dive into the work for work. When I was studying illustration, I never worried about the market during that period.
Yeah. I remember I made a Missile Mouse comic, you know, at home, 24 pages or 26 pages or whatever. It was the first real comic full issue that I'd ever done. And my goal was to print like 50 copies and sell a few online off of my GeoCities website, right, through PayPal. But really my main goal was let's take these to San Diego Comic-Con. Let's hand them out to whoever, trade them with people, hand them out to people, and show them to like my heroes and see what they think. And I showed it to Jeff Smith, the creator of Bone. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And he walked me over to Bob Schreck, who was the DC editor-in-chief at DC, and was like, look at this kid, you got to keep an eye on him. And so like that was my big win with Missile Mouse. I remember showing Jim Lee too, and he was just like, oh wow, this is really cool, like we got to keep an eye on you, right? So that was like before social media would have wrecked me. I would have been like,
same, yeah,
I gotta, this has to have 20,000 likes and all that stuff, when really all I needed was 3 likes from the 3 most important people that I looked up to.
Yeah, but his last name was Shrek. I can't get past that part.
I know. He was pretty big and had weird shaped like nozzle ears and like this greenish complexion.
Nozzle ears.
Yeah. And he had this like little like assistant guy that was always hanging around him called Donkey.
Little Donkey.
Did he sound like Eddie Murphy at all?
Oh my gosh.
A little bit. All right. Should we call it good, or do you want to take this last question?
I think we haven't argued enough.
Me and Lee got to go do our Self-Publishing Pro Q&A session.
Oh yeah.
So I say we did an episode.
That's an episode, you guys.
We are jabbering too much. We got to one question.
It doesn't matter.
That's true.
Do you guys want to tell us a personal story?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that, but I could.
I will tell a personal one though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last weekend.
I'll have one by the time you're done.
I got one.
Okay. Let's do short and sweet.
Short and sweet ones.
Okay. I'm flying down up to Utah for the wedding, and it's a Friday night flight, and no problem other than 2 babies in stereo crying the whole time. So, which is whatever. I had my headphones on. Plane lands. Everybody gets up. As soon as the plane, like the seatbelt lights come up, people get up out of their seats. They're pulling luggage out and everything, right? And in the middle of that, the flight attendant says, I need everybody to go back to your seats right now. Would everybody please return to their seats right now? Very serious. And so everybody's like, oh, okay. So luggage is going back up, people shuffling back to their seats, and we're all just sitting there. And then 2 police officers board the plane, and they walk down the aisle. They walk over to a row and they talk to the guy. They look at the guy in the middle seat. And they're like, you, sir, will you please come with us? And so the guy on the end seat gets up and he kind of turns to the back of the plane and kind of like, he has that like shrugging, like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what's going on. Look on his face. And the guy stands up in the middle row, and he's sleeveless, tattooed, big bearded. He looks like a Hell's Angel type of guy.
Uh-huh.
And he is completely compliant. He just gets up and walks off the plane with them. And as they're walking off, I elbow the guy next to me. This is a guy, we haven't said a single word the entire flight. And I'm like, dude, look, you're missing it. And he's like, oh, shoot. Oh, wow. And he goes, oh, yeah, I work in law enforcement. And he's like, this is actually the best way to get somebody, because they've been screened. They don't have a weapon on them, right? They've been ID'd. Wow. They've been ID'd, so they know exactly who the person is. And there's a record, of where they've been and where they're headed. So it's like it all lines up just as like the safest place. They're in an enclosed space where they can't run away. And he said, it could be anything from him like violating parole to he did something in Arizona and was trying to get away. Who knows what happened? So yeah, wild times on the airplane.
Wow.
Well, that prompts my little quick story. I'll ever tell you about the time that I spent in jail?
Yes, I remember that story, but please tell me again.
Tell you guys.
Is this going to change our opinion of you, Lee?
Yeah, not really. It goes hand in hand.
It helped form my opinion on Lee, actually.
I think the opinion would be that I spent more time in jail. So this will help tame people's.
Right.
It was only one day that I spent in the clink, but I was on a family snowboarding trip, and I was probably 21, so I was kind of making my way in the world, but I didn't have a ton of money or anything like that. But we had this family snowboarding trip. And I brought my friend from Atlanta, who I'm still friends with now and snowboard with quite a bit. And we ran out of money. And the last day we were like, I don't want to pay for another lift ticket. And we noticed that midway up, like the previous days, if you get on the lift mid-mountain, they don't check your lift. Back then, they didn't have the digital readers and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're like, let's just walk up the mountain halfway, and then we'll get on that lift, and we'll never go down to the bottom where they're checking your ticket.
Right.
So we spent, and mind you, this is the mind of a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. We walk up right at the base where the lodge is. Everybody's coming down there. People are having dinner, like lunch, watching us walk up the mountain.
Who are these two guys? What are they
carrying
doing?
the snowboard? I mean, it's taking forever. We're in deep snow. So it takes like an hour to get to the mid-mountain lift. We're like,
but you saved money on a lift ticket.
We did, but we got to the mid-mountain, chairlift, and we got on and we're high-fiving. Like, that was so easy. Like, now we got a whole day of snowboarding ahead of us. And at the top where the cops are waiting with snowmobiles, and they handcuff us and rode us down on snowmobiles. And, and at the bottom, there's a cruiser waiting, and everybody's buying their lift passes and stuff. They're there with their families and stuff. And we're getting put in the back of a police car, and we get literally taken to jail. I could not believe it. I mean, I would understand a ticket or whatever, but we got sent to jail and put in cells. But it wasn't the bar, like the classic, like Western style bar. It was just a metal closable door. And I just remember a couple of things. One, we got the sheriff who was arresting us to take pictures of us during that time period. And I'll try to find it because I've got pictures of this. And then he got scolded by somebody else saying, hey, you're not supposed to take pictures during this process. But then when we were there, this is being so stupid. We're there. It's I guess a fairly serious situation. And there's like a crack about like an inch high at the bottom of the door. And I just remember like yelling down to the secretary and like the other policemen stuff down there that my toes are free, and I would stick my toes under the door and wiggle them. It's like, you can't keep me locked up in here. Right. Anyway, long story short, I call my mom, who's back at the condo, and of course I finally reach her because they're out skiing for the day, and she said, "You got yourself into this, you get yourself out." And I was like, "Oh my gosh."
That is. Yes.
So
that is greatest generation parenting. Right
exactly right. The cherry on top is we had to call a bail person or bond. I can't remember what the person is you call that helps you in that situation. Wasn't a lawyer, a bondsman, but they came, picked us up from the jail, drove me to an ATM machine, handcuffed in the middle of Breckenridge. And I'm at the ATM, handcuffed, giving my pen so I can get bail money. And so instead of buying what was probably a $55 snowboarding ticket at that time, I ended up spending about $500 to get out of jail. Another little cherry on top. As we were leaving, like 8 snowboarders were being brought in.
Oh, so you guys weren't the only one. This is their grift.
This must happen all day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. They record profits for that office.
I could tell you one where my son jumped off the ski lift snowboarding. He was on the lift with me, and he's like, "Should we jump off?" And they got arrested, and I had to go down there and watch that. And as they were crying,
did you say you got yourself into this mess? You get yourself out?
No, my kids were so young, and they're in there balling, and they try to send a message. It's
how high did they jump? I always see those marks when I'm on the chairlift.
We had to lift our snowboard tips up not to be pulled off. The snow year was so high that you had to lift your tip up not to get pulled off. Mm-hmm. So they literally fell and ducked so they didn't hit the back of their head on the chairlift as it went over them.
Wow, that is tempting though.
I know. I almost went in too because it's like it's never that high.
Right.
But anyway, I have a really quick story too. You ready for this?
Yeah, I thought that was your story.
No.
Yeah.
That was a comment on Lee's story. So we're backpacking in the Hyuinas, and I'm a scoutmaster, and there's 2 leaders, and we've got like 9 or 10 kids, and they're all like, the kids are like 12, 13, 14 years old. And we came up with this systems because we didn't want anybody to get lost. we're like, okay, there's always a leader in front and always a leader in back, right? And we'll stop from time to time so that everyone can catch up, make sure everybody's doing okay, and we'll do a head count. So we're going along the trail, and it's a long backpack in up through these mountains, and we stopped one time, and our head count was missing one. And we're like, how? And the other leader was always in the back, and I was always in the front. I'm like, this is impossible. Like, count again. Nope.
Yeah.
We had, I can't remember if we had 8, 9, or 10, but anyway, we were missing one. So we're like, there must have been an offshoot trail, or else he got ahead of us somehow. Like they're like, well, is there any possible way he could get ahead of you? And I'm like, I don't think so. But I know me with my artist mind, I'm probably like making an illustration in my brain as I'm walking, you know, you know, coming up with something to draw or something. And I'm like, man, he might've got past me somehow without me even thinking about it. So he says, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll run with my backpack on. And I had a 40-pound pack. I'll run for 15 minutes straight. There's no way that I won't catch him if I'm running for 15 minutes. And then I'll wait wherever I am. And then you guys come up to me. And so I do that. I mean, I'm booking it. I'm sweating bullets. I'm like, this is someone else's kid I'm responsible for. Man. And we're in a wilderness area. I mean, there's even wolves out there, you know, bears and mountain lions and all sorts of stuff. So I stopped finally. I look at my watch. I stopped after I ran 15 minutes. Finally, they come up to me. No kid. And now we're freaking out. We're just totally freaking out, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And the kid had gone down like a deer. Like this kid, if I had picked any of the kids that would have done this, it's this kid, right? The one that you're like, are you like even a real person? Like, you know, the decisions you make, you know?
Right.
He saw a deer trail and just decided like to go down that. And he was in the middle somewhere, and he just went off the main trail and he didn't even have an answer for why. But the cool thing was when he showed up, he just kind of wandered through the woods because he heard us talking and just showed up in our group. And he was just standing there listening to everybody talking about how are we going to find him.
He didn't know
he's just there.
How are we going to find him?
One of the other kids is like, here he is right here. And we're like, wait, what? Where were you? And he's like, and his answers were just, they were like not coherent, you know, just like, I just was walking. I heard you guys, and but how did you? I went down this little trail. Why'd you do that? I don't know.
Wow.
Well, with that, we'll wrap it up. Story time. What's the emojis?
I'd say another police car for me. Why am I telling cop stories?
An airplane for me.
A pine tree for me.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, everybody. 3-Point Perspective is brought to you by SVSLearn. Where becoming a great illustrator starts. And your hosts today were Will Terry, Lee White, and I'm Jake Parker. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu. That's Daniel TU. And special thanks to everybody at SVS who makes things running and possible. Our team manager, Preston Smith. Our keeper of the curriculum, Austin Shirtliff. Our Shownotes wrangler, Lily Howell. Our chief operations officer, Lisa Fott. And our illustrator, Annalise Black. Now, go draw something.